All right, this is a story that was posted on Fox News Digital. They haven't ran it on their regular network programming yet, but I have a feeling it won't be too long before they will. This demonstrates where we were heading had we continued down the path that the people who were trying to subvert our government, our constitution, and our way of life were heading.
After months of independent investigation, the seven-person China Tribunal panel, which was initiated by the International Coalition to End Transplant Abuse in China, delivered its final findings in June.
For over a decade, the People's Republic of China has stood publicly accused of acts of cruelty and wickedness that match the cruelty and wickedness of medieval torturers and executioners.
It stated, with certainty, that in China, forced organ harvesting from prisoners of conscience has been practiced for a substantial period of time. The report underscored that there were extraordinarily short waiting times for organs to be available for transplantation, and numerous websites advertised hearts, lungs, and kidneys for sale, suggesting an on-demand industry. The organs of members of marginalized groups detained in Chinese prisons and labor camps are unwillingly organ harvested. Most affected is a spiritual minority, the Falun Gong, who have been persecuted for rebuffing state atheism and adhering to a Buddhist-centric religious philosophy grounded in meditation and compassion. Witness testimonies provided to the tribunal paint the picture of a callous trade, often performed when the victims are still alive. On January 27, 2009, four of my family members went to see my father at the labor camp in Chongqing. When we talked with him, his mental and physical health were completely normal. On January 28th, about 3:40 p.m. the next day, someone from the Xishanping labor camp called saying that my father had died at about 2:40 p.m. Her family members were taken to the Shijialiang funeral home by police cars. There were 3 slots in the freezer of the funeral home. My dad had been placed in the middle slot on the second freezer shelf. My sister touched my father's face and found that his lip was still warm. She yelled, "Dad, Dad, my dad is still alive, he's not dead." We immediately pulled my dad's body out and put him on the ground. We wanted to check his body. Everyone touched him. His body was still warm. Several dozen people were there. One of them said, "It's no use making the phone call. The officers are here already. They won't come." My brother asked, "How could a dead person still be warm after being frozen for more than 7 hours?" When we started to unbutton his clothes and check his body to see if there was anything wrong, each of us was picked up by 4 people and forcibly removed from the morgue. On February 8th, they called and told us that my father had been autopsied and then cremated. In his autopsy report, it said that 3 of his ribs were broken and all of his organs had been removed. My father was still alive and his body was still warm. How could you remove his organs? Without our family's consent, how could you just cremate him? We hired lawyers to sue the perpetrators and petitioned the higher authorities to seek justice for my father. This
Now let's stop right here. We're going to come back.
Sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? That a government could think so little of its own people that they could engage in such practices. However, we should all bear in mind there's already been examples of this right here in our own country. The harvesting and selling of baby organ parts. Where do you think the next step is?
200,000 annually.
Yu Ming, another member of Falun Gong and newly arrived in the United States, claimed that he was kidnapped multiple times by law enforcement, the most recent time in August 2013, and locked up in the Shenyang Detention Center, where he was allegedly beaten into oblivion. He secretly recorded footage at major military hospitals in mainland China over the past couple of years and has turned it over to the courts as evidence for unlawful organ transplants.
In the prison and labor camps, every Falun Gong practitioner is forced to get blood test and physical check. But when you are really ill, you got sick, they don't take care of you. But when you are healthy, you don't have any issue, they will force you to do all the blood tests and other physical checks. But when you are really got sick, they don't take care of you. This is very suspicious. The first time it was in 2006 or 2007 when I was in Beijing, in one labor camp in Beijing. They checked my body thoroughly and they found my liver has some issues, so they just gave up. They forced me to stay in hospital for about 6 months. The second time was in 2008 to 2009. I was forced to stay in a hospital in Masanja for about 1 year. Because my liver has some issues, they just gave up. There was a third time. The third time was when I was in the prison, not labor camp, 2016 to 17. During this period, I witnessed a lot of people died. After I was released at the end of 2017, I began to investigate. I just went to different hospitals in different cities to investigate the organ harvesting.
According to the China Tribunal, there are mountains of money to be made. Data from 2007 shows that hospitals charge more than $65,000 for a kidney transplant, $130,000 for liver, and more than $100,000 for lung or heartbeat. In the United States, they just do it to babies, of course, so it's liberal. Keep the babies alive, liberal. Desperate patients might make a high-priced donation for a new organ at top speed. That's okay. The practice is alleged to have started in the 90s on a small scale and was initially characterized as targeting the forceful removal of organs of prisoners on death row. And now it's for everybody, because business is good. It's a communist utopia. We just do it to babies after they're born, so that makes it liberal.
Survivors routinely point to the frequent physical screenings, ultrasounds, and x-rays as...
All right, folks, when we come back, we're going to get to your phone.
A lot of people say they're concerned about Israel and their influence over this country. A valid concern, but according to what you just heard and have seen, the influence that China has had and the amount of investment that they have put into undermining this country and our system, I would say, without a doubt, that this should be the most concerning thing. Because it could happen to anyone that's willing to stand up for what this country was founded on, what the Constitution's supposed to mean, and the defense of freedom. Because what they haven't told you yet, or told us yet, is that they were trying to sell out the whole system to China. And there's plenty of evidence to anyone who's been paying attention along the way. That's exactly what was going on. That's why the NBA bows to China. That's why trade laws were written in just such a fashion that it was more attractive for American corporations to move to China. And there's many other examples. As I've said before, a strong America is not conducive for the system that they were trying to build. if freedom is a beacon for the rest of the world, everyone else will want it. And according to their philosophy, that's exactly why it had to be undermined and destroyed.